to that is there's a particular problem in the Islamic world which people don't really talk about very much, but it's this, that the Quran is meant to be the final revelation of God to man, the final revelation. There's none after it. And all the revelations that come before in the Abrahamic religions are part of Islam. The lack of information that has been available in not all, but much of the Islamic world for many centuries has caused a deep stagnation in those societies.
This isn't the type of clash people think it is. On one side sits Patrick Bet-David, a refugee-turned-entrepreneur who built his platform on data, patterns, and uncomfortable questions. On the other is Douglas Murray, a British intellectual shaped by philosophy and the long memory of civilizations rising and falling. Two men from two different worlds clashing on one very hot topic: Islamic jihadism.
Oh, here's another question for you. See where you go with this one. I asked you the question about what communities families feel safe in, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about the Judeo-Christian U.S., everybody feels safe to be in an environment like this. You're going to be fine, right, to be in an environment like this. Why do you think the opposite is not true? Why do you think Christian families who are leaving their countries, they don't think about moving to Iran? Why do you think they don't think about moving to different Muslim? Why do you think they don't think that?
PBD is not a pundit by accident. He's someone who escaped instability, built order through systems, and believes that outcomes matter more than intentions. He's the guy who asks why certain communities outperform, why some cultures scale, why others struggle, and he asks it the same way a CEO would. Numbers first, patterns second, feelings later.
This is one I will answer the question, but just let me do it in this slightly roundabout way. This is one of the reasons why I'm worried about this anti-Westernism and anti-Americanism, which I see coming from right and left at the moment, is that there's a deep failure of recognition of what it is in our societies that's worked. And I think we're at risk of killing the golden goose by saying the gold isn't golden enough.
Douglas Murray comes from a different place entirely. He's not chasing data to optimize a business. He's chasing ideas to understand why societies survive or decay. He's steeped in European history, the Enlightenment, revolutions that worked and revolutions that collapsed. He's seen what happens when civilizations lose the ability to criticize themselves, and he speaks like someone who's watched that movie before and knows how it ends. That contrast matters because this conversation doesn't explode like other debates you've seen. It slides.
And the things that work in our society are very fundamental. What the framers, the founders, the framers of the Constitution realized. Maybe the only successful revolution in the world. They realized that things like freedom of conscience, freedom of speech were absolutely the bedrocks. And that if you didn't get them, then the rest could not follow. If you don't believe in freedom of expression, freedom of belief, freedom of worship, a whole set of other problems come. They essentially, as I see it, fall down to the fact that if you are in error, you cannot correct it.
If you are in an error, you cannot correct it. Unpack that.
So this is what John Stuart Mill, for instance, one of the great philosophers of liberty, unpacks in one of his most famous works, On Liberty. Mm-hmm. The free speech, the necessity of free speech in a society comes about in part because if you are wrong, you need to know you're wrong. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if you're running the economy and it's not working, instead of keeping on allowing it to not work, you have to have your ears and eyes open for a system.
At first it feels casual, almost meandering. They talk about people online suddenly becoming experts on religious texts. Murray chuckles at it. And honestly, who hasn't seen that? Someone watches 3 clips, reads a thread, and suddenly they're lecturing centuries of theology. We've all rolled our eyes at that guy. But Murray isn't dismissing curiosity, he's warning against shallow certainty.
And it's by the way, one of the interesting things I find about market guys in general is their ability to pivot. In a way, by the way, it just goes back slightly to the politicians issue. One of the reasons I'm interested in the way in which market people think is that it's very, very different to the way that politicians think. Politicians can see a wall and they drive towards it at the same speed or faster, and you say wall, 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 and then they hit.
Yeah.
A market guy, you say wall and they move. This is a very, very different instinct. Now, but to go back to this, the ability to correct yourself if you're in error is absolutely key. The lack of information that has been available in not all, but much of the Islamic world for many centuries has caused a deep stagnation in those societies. And as I see it, the oil-rich countries like Qatar and Saudi, although Saudi is interestingly pivoting at the moment, very successfully, really, they have been in the same situation that European monarchies were like in, let's say, the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries, which was they could not grow the economy.
This is the moment Murray turns the lens outward toward much of the Islamic world, and he does it carefully. Here's where things get uncomfortable really fast, where Murray says something rash and shocking about the Quran.
One of them is a deep resentment. And one of the most important insights I've ever stumbled upon in my life in relation to that is there's a particular problem in the Islamic world which people don't really talk about very much, but it's this, that the Quran is meant to be the final revelation of God to man. The final revelation. There's none after it. And all the revelations that come before in the Abrahamic religions are part of Islam. If you are the recipients of the final word, and you are the followers of that word, and the followers of that prophet and that God, why is your society not working? And why are other societies working? I think this is a deep psychological problem within much of the Muslim world, which is we thought we were the winners theologically. We're the ones who got the final revelation.
You can see PBD's expression change by that. You see, Murray doesn't talk like someone trying to win an exchange, because by making that sweeping statement he just bumped a lot of heads together, both Muslims and Christians alike. Before we get to the part PBD asked him what he meant by the Quran being the final revelation, let's hear what he says next.
And I think, by the way, that much of the anti-Americanism, the anti-Zionism, and anti-Westernism in much of the Muslim world falls down to this fact somewhere at its root, which is how come they're doing better than us when we were told that we were best? And I think it causes serious cognitive dissonance. It's one of the reasons why the Muslim world is so vulnerable to conspiracy theory. It's why when a shark attack happened at Sharm el-Sheikh 10 years ago, the local authorities said that the shark that had eaten the bather at the most popular tourist resort in Egypt had been sent by the Zionists. This is like seeing the hand of the West. So it goes back to our earlier conversation. Seeing the hand of the West in other things is an explanation for why the things are not doing well there. And in country after country, whether it's Egypt, which is doing comparatively well compared to some of them, or Iran, as well, the immiseration of the people, the inability to unleash talent, and much more comes back to this small number of people benefiting and having no idea how to unleash talent underneath. That and political and personal and religious freedom, including freedom of speech and freedom of worship, are the absolute prerequisites. And that is why I cannot understand the suicidal anti-Westernism within our societies in our time.
Murray makes a point that lands heavily. Societies only improve if they can admit they're wrong. If you can't say this failed, you're doomed to repeat it forever. His references to John Stuart Mill is simple enough that you don't need philosophy training to get it.
As I like to say, the footfall should tell us everything. Nobody, as you say, is trying to go to Iran in order to have freedom of religion. Nobody is going into communist China for a better life. Certainly not from the West.
They have a negative net migration, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why when I think of the sort of college students who believe that no one's had it so bad as you do in 2024 at Berkeley, one of the things I'm sort of amazed at is like, do you not notice that the world wants to come here? And do you not think there might be a reason for that? And do you not think that it might be because there are some things that we've done well here, and that if we've done well with them in the past, we should hold on to those things?
Yeah.
That example Murray gives, the shark attack blamed on Zionists, sounds ridiculous until you realize it's a symptom, not a joke. When systems don't allow internal blame, the blame has to go somewhere else. At this point, PBD jerks back to reality momentarily, to ask what had been on his mind for long.
You're a history guy. Got a question for you. I'm Armenian. I'm curious on how you're going to answer this. Let's see if this is going to piss you off or not.
I'll be the judge of that.
I'll react to it. So it is what it is. So, the world has recognized the Holocaust, that it happened, okay? 100+ countries, including Germany. You got reparations. You got all this other stuff.
It'd be rather alarming if Germany hadn't recognized it.
I know, exactly. But they even paid for it. So it's not like, they went one up. They're like, not only yes, but we'll also pay our debt because of XYZ, right? But if there's anybody that knows about genocides, if anybody knows about genocides, it would have to be the Jewish community, right, with the Holocaust.
And the Armenians and others.
The Armenians prior to the Jewish community, 2.25 million, whatever, have 1.5 million Armenians. You got, I think it's 400,000 Greeks and 250,000 Assyrians.
And isn't it amazing that that's still a political issue?
It is, but believe it or not, Joe Biden is the first one that recognized it. Okay,
I know.
And
what strikes most here is how calm Murray stays while dumbfounding his host. He's not gleeful. He's almost sad, like someone describing a preventable disease. Then he contrasts this with Western societies. They are flawed and hypocritical, but capable of pivoting.
Countries around the world that have recognized the Armenian genocide, including Argentina, Brazil, Canada, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Mexico, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Russia, Sweden, US. Israel has not. Why not?
No idea. You'd have to ask them.
Don't you think that's a little weird?
I don't know. It's one of those facts you can pull out that I just don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Yeah, I'm curious because to me it would be like, that part is it's not like if there's anybody that would be the first to, hey, we're the first. Listen, that's kind of weird. What just happened?
I don't know. I think there's a load of weird stuff in the world. You can always pull something like that out.
What
are you driving at?
I'm Armenian. I'm driving it because I'm Armenian.
Right.
So to me, like we don't sit there and we say, the events didn't happen to the Jewish community. But if they're that happened. You're not supposed. By the way, I don't know if you saw what Erdogan said recently. Did you see what Erdogan said last week?
I followed.
When Murray talks about oil-rich Gulf states, he doesn't deny wealth. He explains the stagnation. Money flowing upward. Power concentrated. No mechanism to unleash talent below. That part hit closely because we all know brilliant people trapped in systems that don't reward brilliance, only loyalty. Then comes the line that ties everything together. Genocides.
He's quite a close enemy.
So Erdogan... If you type in news, type in Erdogan and Israel. I think that's the one right there. The first story, Rob. Go zoom in a little bit so we can read it. I can see all the stories. Erdogan seeks Islamic. That's the one. Erdogan seeks Islamic
alliance against Israel. Says its expansionism will stop in Gaza.
Right. So part of it, you'll hear some people make the argument the reason why Israel doesn't want to recognize the Armenian genocide is because they may lose an ally like Turkey. But Turkey is not necessarily the biggest ally to Israel, especially the position that they're taking. I don't think Erdogan wakes up in the morning saying, I wonder how safe Israel is.
No, Erdogan is a deep opponent of Israel, of course.
For sure it is.
But what's your point? Sorry.
I just think if the Israeli community is seeing what's happening, they know what history is, and they're seeing what Turkey and Azerbaijan was doing to Armenia.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Why wouldn't they come out and say, hey, we don't support this and we also recognize the Armenian genocide? It's a little weird.
Well, it could be a realpolitik thing of the very, very tense Israeli-Turkish relationship, which, as you know, sometimes it's relatively tepid and at other times it's absolutely rank, like with the Mavi Marmara. But this is different, though. I mean, Erdogan is saying that the expansionism,
Lebanon, Syria, and our homeland.
I mean, this is Erdogan doing Erdogan. I mean, as I say, I'm not.
Hamas is not only defending Gaza, but also Islamic lands.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I see Hamas deeply caring about other Arabs. I see that absolutely. I mean, Hamas's desire to simply help the people of Lebanon, like their friends in Hezbollah, they definitely care about the Lebanese people, and definitely big humanitarians. These Hamas guys.
Notice how Murray doesn't moralize the Armenian genocide away. He admits geopolitics is ugly, that sometimes truth loses to strategy, and that honesty, ironically, reinforces his earlier point: systems that can admit uncomfortable truths survive longer.
That one is a very straightforward one. I don't believe that Ukraine is part of Europe, but it's awfully close. And if you go to the Baltic states, as I did again, I know 18 months ago, I suppose, a year ago, if you go to the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and so on, they are really worried about Russia. Really worried. They have, enlistment and so on. If you go to the Central and Eastern Europe, simply the further east you go across Europe, the more you find a genuine concern about this. If Vladimir Putin had succeeded...
What do you think? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.